The opinions expressed within the content of this podcast solely that of our guests and do not reflect the views and beliefs of the Bigfoot and Paranormal Encounters podcast, its hosts or its affiliates.
Welcome to Bigfoot and Paranormal Encounters podcast. And now your host, Dave Weichert.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to Bigfoot and Paranormal Encounters podcast. Right away, I can see the freeze on my end when I play video and have myself in there, so I had to back myself out and come back in. But I'll get to the bottom of it and figure out what the technical issue is eventually. All right, so tonight we have a great guest, and I'm going to bring her in a few moments. Let's see here. Okay, one announcement I want to make is the Bucks County Bigfoot meetup is going to be starting in August. I don't have a date yet, but I'll get that date out there as soon as I can, and I'll put it up on Facebook for everyone. So let's not waste any more time. Let's bring in our guest.
Mm-hmm.
Alex, how are you? Hi.
I'm great. How are you?
Pretty good. Okay,
Good.
I got your bio here. I'm just gonna read a few things here. It's pretty lengthy. Sounds like mine. Many years of. What's that?
I can't hear nothing.
Okay, give me 1 second, and I'll get that on for you. Okay. All right. I'm sorry. Yeah, many years of paranormal for myself as well. Before I go ahead and read yours, I'm gonna play something here for you so you have an idea of my background. So let me throw that up there real quick.
Dave Weigert was born and raised in Baltimore, Maryland. His family has seen and experienced far more than most families with strange encounters and tragic moments. Dave, the youngest of 4 children and the only living sibling, went on to have many strange encounters throughout his childhood and adult life. At age 20 he began his journey to learn about the unknown. Dave has a background with Baltimore County Fire and Police, private security, bodyguard, bank security and security for a Baltimore sports team and other law enforcement agencies. Dave started the Maryland Paranormal Research Team in 2003 and closed the doors in 2016. He started Other Voices on the MPRT radio network along with a newsletter. From 2007 till 2016 he was the curator for the haunted Ramblewood Mansion. He hosted years of paranormal research and investigations at the location. Dave was also a mobile DJ for 35 years. Dave was a speaker at a number of colleges speaking about the paranormal to students. Dave founded the Maryland Bigfoot Research Team in 2018 and left it to a former member of MPRT. He now resides in Bucks County, Pennsylvania near his grandchildren. He has since founded the Mid-Atlantic Bigfoot Research Team. He currently hosts a podcast weekly called Bigfoot and Paranormal Encounters Podcast. Let's welcome Dave to the podcast.
Okay, did that play okay when you were in?
Yeah, it played beautifully for me.
Okay. I just had it pop up here. Give me 1 second. I want to get something working for my wife.
Yeah, no worries. No worries.
Okay. Go back. Why is it not? It should be there. That should be it right there. Oops. No, next one over. I'm sorry. Should be that one. Really good. All right, so I'm back. All right, Alex is a paranormal investigator. She has a podcast, The Spooky Stuff, and that's on YouTube, correct?
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yep. On YouTube. You can also find it on Spotify.
Okay. And she is the founder of the Association of Paranormal Study. Alex has appeared on Haunted Hospitals, Season 3, Episode 12. Me and my wife, we watched that last night. It was pretty scary. Yeah. And she's also appeared on Most Terrifying Places in America. She is an author, and you have 4 books.
Yep. Actually, I got more like 7 or 8 now. Yeah, I need to start counting again.
Okay. We'll get into that, and we'll discuss her books in a little bit. Let me just let's see here. Okay. So, Alex, tell us a little bit about yourself, and let me see. What do we got here? Tell us about yourself. And my first question for you is going to be, tell us about some of your childhood experiences as well.
Yeah. So currently I live in the Washington, D.C. metro area. So I live on the Virginia side, but I'm right on the Potomac River. So literally I can look outside my apartment. I can see the Capitol and it's all right there, which is
Nice.
amazing. Yeah, lots of haunted places around this area too, more so than I ever expected. But yeah, so by day I work as a learning experience designer for a fairly large corporation, so very corporate America. And then in the evening, I'm writing. I have a team called the Association of Paranormal Study. We're primarily a paranormal research organization. We do go out and investigate occasionally, but a lot of times we're just studying theories, investigation methods, folklore, history, seeing how it connects to, the wider paranormal world. And then, yeah, so, and I also, I do have a YouTube channel called The Spooky Stuff. I haven't made anything in a while. I'm actually starting to creep back into doing more content again.
Okay.
Currently my team and I are preparing for a pretty large paranormal conference we are putting on in Gettysburg on Saturday, August 17th. It is called the Paranormal Research Symposium. And we will be having a full day of panels, workshops, and presentations covering ghosts, cryptids, mediumship, parapsychology. It's going to be an amazing day. So if you're free on Saturday, August 17th, and you're around the Gettysburg area, or you can travel to Gettysburg, come spend the day with us, talking all about the weird and the strange. And yeah, I'm trying to think of anything else that I haven't quite covered yet. I think that's it in a nutshell. In terms of early experiences, childhood experiences, it's I'm like very many other people. My first experiences happened when I was a child. Not a unique origin story these days, but yeah, my very first paranormal experience, at least that I can remember, happened when I was in Appalachian, Kentucky. So very much, the Appalachian folklore, superstitions that we know today, I grew up with, but I didn't think that they were weird. I didn't think they were weird at all. It was like, yeah, I mean, of course, yeah, you close your curtains at night, and yeah, you're not going to go outside in the woods whistling. If you hear your mother's voice in the woods, no, you didn't. It was very
Right.
much like I already grew up with that. And I didn't think it was even weird until like a few years ago when Appalachian folklore was starting to really, you know, make make its presence online, and I'm like, oh, that wasn't normal. But I also grew up in California and went to Kentucky during the summers, so it was like, it was kind of like my fun little getaway growing up. But yeah, the earliest experience what happened during a dark and stormy night, so even more cliche. There was a hooded figure outside of my mama's house where I was staying. Um, the wind was blowing, the rain was practically blowing sideways. Um, and this figure was not bothered at all by the turbulent weather. And my mama lived on a hill. So if you walk outside on the grass on that hill after it rained, I mean, you're gonna slip and fall if you're not careful. So
Hmm.
the fact that this figure was able to move closer and closer to my window during the storm and not be bothered at all. And I didn't even actually see it move. It was one of those I would close the curtain, then curiosity, I would open the curtain again to look outside, and the figure was closer every time.
Right.
Um, yeah, so it freaked me out a little. And then I tried to go to bed, and um, the bed I slept on in Kentucky with, my mama's house, it was a really cheap old mattress. It didn't necessarily sink when you sat on it like a normal mattress does. It actually tilted. Like, so if you sat down, the bed went like that. So,
Hmm.
um, so I shared the bed with my mama, and I was alone at the time. My mama was in the living room watching TV. And I always knew when she came to bed because, the bed would tilt. And so I'm laying there. I got the covers over my head because I just saw this weird figure get closer and closer to the house. And then the bed tilted, and I'm thinking, oh, thank goodness, Mama's here. I can go to sleep. And the bed tilted. I slid off the bed. I looked up. The bed was still tilted, and there was nobody else there. And then the bed just went right back to its spot, like somebody had gotten up. I was both freaked out and also very intrigued. And I was I want to say about 7 or 8 years old when that occurred.
Hmm. Interesting. So now I know we're going to get into the year 2005, but my next question is, what sparked your interest to get involved in the paranormal?
Well, the big event that happened in 2005, 2006 was kind of the big instigating event, but at least it for me to get into more serious research. But after I had that experience when I was a child, I was really wanting to learn more about it. I wanted to and I grew up in the era of Goosebumps, Are You Afraid of the Dark? There were books about the Warrens and books by Hans Holzer in my local library. My mother was very anti-paranormal when I was growing up, very much fundamentalist Christian as you can get. Anything that was related to ghosts, spirits, wasn't an actually ghosts or spirits, but it was the devil. So none of that was allowed in the, none of that was allowed in the house. So I had to be really sneaky and strategic. Either I would hide any books or any scary content would happen in my grandma's room, because my grandma was, this is the same grandma that grew up in Appalachian, Kentucky. So she was like, yeah, just come into my bedroom and, you can read the books and watch the TV. And plus we were living with my grandmother. So, so it was like her house, her rules, but she would still respect the boundary that my mother would, set. But yeah, it was very interesting. It was very interesting how all of that happened. But when you tell a kid they can't do something, all they want to do is do more of it. So that was pretty much what got me interested, is a mix of I wanted to learn more, but also a little bit of rebelling. So
Okay. So the year 2005, that was on New Year's Eve. Tell us about that.
Yeah. So let's see. Let me think. So when it comes to that whole event, it's a long story. I'm going to try to keep it as succinct as possible. But yeah, I was driving to a party on New Year's Eve, 2005 in San Diego. It was raining, and I had hydroplaned on the freeway, or on the freeway ramp, getting onto the highway, and my car hydroplaned. My car was wrecked. I got out of the car. Somebody came to check on me. A couple of other people stopped. One person was helping with directing traffic. And then, so while I was getting stuff out of my car, because I was in a show at the time and I needed to get my costumes out because I knew they were going to have to tow my car. Another car came and hit me, knocked me over the guardrail, and I fell 25 feet onto the road below. So needless to say, I had to go to the hospital. And they were taking me by ambulance. Unfortunately, because of my injuries, it was a very painful ride. So because it was raining and it was New Year's Eve, the hospitals were packed full of people. They couldn't even take me to the nearest hospital because it was already full. And San Diegans are not used to rain, so the driving is not stellar. So there was a lot of people injured that night. So they took me to the next nearest. Hospital. And again, it was very much packed to the point that you were sharing trauma rooms. So there was a gentleman in the room with me who, from my understanding, from what I was told, had been in a motorcycle accident, and he was the motorcyclist. As the doctors were working on me, in addition to broken bones, I had some pretty significant internal bleeding. So they were trying to get a handle on that. They couldn't give me pain medication because my blood pressure was so low. So anytime that they were moving me or touching me, it was extremely painful. And what distracted me for a moment was I heard screaming from the bed next to me. And when I looked over, I saw this man dressed in leather pants, leather jacket, covered in blood, and to the point where there was blood on the floor. He was screaming. The nurse that was one of the nurses that was working on me saw that I was staring at him. She had pulled a frosted glass, like a divider between us, so that I wouldn't look. I could still see a little bit of what was happening, but
Right.
the doctors had to move me again. At that moment, I don't know if I blacked out or what happened, but I saw myself floating above my body. I was able to also walk around the lobby area. I could see my mom and all of my friends in the lobby. A part of me was thinking like, okay, maybe I died, and these are all the people I care about.
Hmm.
Um, and then I was at the foot of the bed watching the doctors work on me. As I was standing at the foot of the bed, I noticed that there was someone else standing at the foot of the other bed where I'd seen this man in the leather jacket. Um, it was also another man with the leather jacket staring. I would later realize that there was the same person as the one on the table. And we locked eyes. For me, it felt like I was going down a roller coaster. Um, and I was back in my body. And at this point, the doctors had already finished working on me. There was a candy striper. I'll never forget his name. His name was Joe. He was cleaning the blood off of my face. I looked at the time. He saw that I was looking at the clock, and it was after midnight. And he wished me a happy new year. Um, so I did have to get an MRI, a CAT scan to really assess like what kind of damage there was. Um, Broke 3 vertebrae in my back, vertically sheared my pelvis. Um,
Mm.
yeah, it was, I had some pretty ugly injuries. And then I was brought up to my room. And almost immediately, I started seeing weird things. One of the most notable was a shadow darting around my room. And then I actually saw this man in the leather jacket appear in the room while the California Highway Patrol was interviewing me. And as they were interviewing me, this guy, like, they were not very kind when they interviewed me. They were trying to pull my compression socks down because they wanted to see the bruises from when the car hit me. I wasn't comfortable with that. This man in the leather jacket just started shouting at them, telling them to get out. I was 19 at the time, and I thought, oh, this guy is sticking up for me, and he's checking in on me and trying to say hi and all this stuff. But then after that night, it quickly turned sinister, so to speak. It was really quite alarming because I would see him. Sometimes he would appear as like a normal person, uninjured, but then other times he would be covered in blood. It kind of turned into him stalking me at some points, and he would say, "Why you, not me? Why did you live, and why did I have to die?" And this lasted for about 8 months. Yeah, it was about 8 months until we were finally able to get some sort of resolution. And I mean, it happened in the least dramatic way possible. We did bring in someone from the Greek Orthodox Church to help, but it more so just put on a muzzle. So really, I mean, it was uneventful how it finally concluded. It was just more so me just saying like, "Hey, I'm sorry you died. I'm sorry this happened, but what is happening now cannot keep going, and you need to move on." And ultimately that's how it resolved. So again, like I said, it was like the least dramatic conclusion possible, but it worked.
So you had a spirit attachment, and so he followed you home.
He did.
And
Yes.
and how long did that last?
About 8 months. So
About 8 months.
I was in the hospital for about 2.5, 3 months. It was significant. And I also had to do physical therapy. I could not care for myself because I was not mobile.
Hmm.
Comes with having a broken hip, and when you're trying to do that and learn how to walk again. But yeah, I actually ended up switching hospitals about halfway, and he followed me into the next hospital too. So that's when I kind of realized, I was like, well, seems like that this is going to be a thing for a bit. But yeah, so
So you let's see. You wrote a book about that. I believe it's called the Next Bed Over.
yeah, one bed
Okay.
over. Yeah.
One bed
Um,
over. I'm sorry.
Yep. No, it's all good. One bed over, a hospital haunting. And where that came from actually was I had the opportunity to tell my story on the show Haunted Hospitals. And
Mhm.
I knew they were only going to be able to cover so much in such a short amount of time. So I decided that I'm like, I really want to tell this story to the fullest extent. Um, let's see what I can cook up. And so basically I wrote the book so that people could hear the whole story. Um, so that people could hear the whole story and get an idea of what happened. And because I knew that this was going to there was going to be questions. They were probably going to have to cut um they were probably going to have to cut certain elements to fit within time. So I just wanted to make sure that the whole story was out there. And I'm glad I did, because like the car accident, what led up to the car accident was significant. um and yeah, so it just goes into more details about what happened to me, the types of encounters that I had with the man in the leather jacket. um yeah, so I'm glad I did. I mean, Haunted Hospitals did a fantastic job telling the story, but I did want to make sure that the full story was out there in some form.
Okay. Yeah, myself, in 2001, one evening I went to work and I wasn't feeling well. And I winded up hitting a tractor trailer head on.
Oh my goodness.
I passed out behind my patrol car, and the police had said I hit this tractor trailer at about 80 miles an hour. But
Oh my gosh.
it turned into angelic. And I'm not going to go into great details because I got a book coming out in 2025 that tells the story. I lived to tell, but there was many strange things that I experienced while sitting in the car, because I sat in the car after I came to, after being passed out. Didn't know I had diabetes, but that was the cause of me passing out behind the wheel.
Mm.
And I sat in the car bleeding, and had internal injuries and cuts in my face and lacerations and all that stuff. I had an arm that was broken 4 places, and yeah. So my book's going to be coming out in 2025, but it's the book is about my family incidents.
Nice.
Just a lot of strange encounters over the years. So
Hmm.
let me see where I'm at here. Let me just split this over. Okay, so you run a paranormal group, a paranormal research team.
Yeah. So yeah, the Association of Paranormal Study. Yeah. I started the group. Sorry, my cat is wanting attention, so she's
That's
getting
okay.
scritches. She's getting
See
scritches and
that?
scratches.
My wife
yeah,
loves cats.
nice. Yeah. So the Association of Paranormal Study, I started the team in 2011. The
Mhm.
big and why I started that group was the big thing when I was dealing with the man in the leather jacket, was we couldn't find anyone to help us. At the time, my mother and I were members of of a Southern Baptist church. Yes, there are Southern Baptist churches in San Diego, California. Member of the Southern Baptist Convention, so it was legit. But we couldn't find anyone to help us, and with that, um, with that type of thing, like if you bring up ghosts or anything, it was like, oh no, we can't help you. And or it would be like the extreme other side of it of, oh, this isn't a ghost, it's a demon, and that sort of thing. So my mother was talking to a friend of hers who was also a client, kind of sharing with her what was going on. And this person was a member of the Greek Orthodox Church. And that's how
Mhm.
we ended up getting help from there. But in terms of like a paranormal team, the paranormal community that exists today did not exist in 2006. Finding anybody, I mean, I think the TV show Ghost Hunters was maybe 1 year old or 2 years old at the time. So we couldn't
Mhm.
find anyone to help. So really, that's why I started the Association of Paranormal Study, was so that I could be a resource for my community with their own paranormal um, issues. And so um, I started. So I actually tried joining a few other teams before that, but because my schedule was so inconsistent, I couldn't really commit to any of the other teams. And so I'm like, well, I could be my own boss and start my own team. So that's how APS began. It's so that I could be a resource for my community. And we've been going since then. I mean, we're going to be 13 years old coming up, actually in September. So it's been good. I mean, we've had ups and downs. Team members have come and gone. Some team members left, but they stuck around just to still help and be a part of the organization in some way. It's been a wonderful experience so far overall.
That's good. I ran the Maryland Paranormal Research Team from 2003 till 2016 before I hung up my paranormal boots. And I tried joining a paranormal team, but like you said, it just I worked a lot and multiple jobs, and I just decided that I wanted my own team, and it became one big happy family. And they came. And, some would leave, some wouldn't stick with it. And, you know how it goes. But Christopher has a question. I'm not sure if it's for me or it's for you. It says, will it be released on Audible?
For One Bed Over, not currently. I would like to get it on Audible. There's just a whole production side of audiobooks that unfortunately I don't have the time or the financial resources to pursue right now. Ideally in the future, yes, because I really want to make the book as accessible as possible to a wider audience. It's the time and the financial resources, because you have to hire a voiceover person. You also have to either hire somebody to edit the audio or you do it yourself, which is a lot of time, which is the reason why people usually pay someone to do it. So yeah, ultimately that is the plan. It's the plan.
Okay.
I'm hoping maybe in the next year or two, at least on my side.
Here's a good question. Do you have a mentor?
A mentor, I did. Unfortunately, she passed away about a year ago. So I do talk to other people who are way smarter than me in the field. I've actually been dipping my toes more into the parapsychology side of this field, which has been very interesting. So a lot of times, not necessarily like having an official mentor, but reaching out to people just to get their 2 cents on a situation, or theories or a case, that sort of thing. So that's what I have. So.
Okay, let me just throw this up there. I personally love it when the author reads it themselves.
Yeah, that one too. I have contemplated it. I'm debating whether to record myself reading the book, and then maybe send it to somebody to edit. I don't listen to a lot of audiobooks, if any, so I want to like read or listen to a few and see how it's done. And then that's the other thing. I'm like, I might be able to pay somebody to edit it instead, and then just read it myself. That is something I've contemplated as well. So I love that, Christopher.
Okay. Here's a question. Have you ever had the pleasure of working with Rosemary Ellen Galley?
So I had the honor of meeting her. I think it was a year or two before she passed away. I got to attend her workshop and presentation on Black Mirror scrying. I didn't get a chance to interact with her much though. It wasn't until actually I started working on Women of the Paranormal, Volume 1. This was after she passed, and I was like, I want to write about her. So I didn't get a chance to like work with her, but I talked to several people who worked with her, people that she mentored. I also talked to her husband for the book, and really got a an amazing perspective on the impact of her work, how brilliant she was. I mean, like that was a tremendous loss to the field. And just overall like smart, wonderful, and how willing to help. That
Mhm.
she really encompassed. It's one of those situations I do regret not pursuing further. But it is what it is. But luckily she has so many books that I can read and continue her legacy in that sense. And then one of her mentees, Lisa Crick, is actually on my team. So, in a
Great.
way, Rosemary's legacy is continuing through Lisa as well.
Yeah, I had the pleasure of myself, her, and a gentleman by the name of Bill Bean. I don't know if you're
Oh,
familiar with.
Bill, yes, I know Bill.
Yeah. Okay. So we, over the years, we spoke at a number of colleges, and I've had the pleasure of working with her a few times. I had an event at Ramblewood. Ramblewood is a mansion. It was part of the Underground Railroad, and she came there for that event. And yeah, let's see. Here's a question for you. Have you ever dealt with a djinn?
For me, I don't think so. I did
Okay.
read an early copy of Rosemary's book. Actually, I was having her on a podcast I used to host.
Mhm.
And so I read a very early copy of the book before it was published. It's a fascinating topic. For me personally, I don't think so, based on what I read from Rosemary's research. I know there's other research out there too, but I'm not 100% sure. I'm not closed off from the possibility, but at this moment, maybe not.
Okay. All right. When doing a paranormal case, have you ever had a spirit follow you home?
Actually, yeah. So I've had it happen a couple times, and for me, I don't necessarily mind if they follow me home if they're not
Mhm.
disruptive. Um, I'll take in like the orphaned, abandoned ghost that needs a
There you
home,
go.
um, with boundaries. I did I guess not accidentally, not intentionally, but I brought home a ghost from Gettysburg. Year or so ago, I had gone to Iverson's Pits, which is the site of a very horrific attack that happened on the Confederate Army, mainly from the North Carolina unit. And I did a spirit box type of session, just to see what I would pick up. And my husband was with me, and I pointed out. My husband served in the military, and my husband's from North Carolina, and we lived in North Carolina. We used to. I lived there for 9 years. My husband grew up in North Carolina, so really just trying to create like that connection as we do with spirits. That finding that common ground. Military North Carolina, and then after we got home, some of the activity associated with Iverson's Pits is like lights in the cornfield. And we started seeing lights in our bathroom, in our guest bathroom, which, the door was shut and closed off from any street lights. So I was like, oh, that's weird. Started to get really like overwhelmed, almost like feeling oppressed. Like I was very emotional. And finally I decided to do another spirit box session using a tool called Phasma. And I asked point blank, I said, "Did you follow me from Gettysburg?" And then you hear this male voice say, "Of course." So I was like, okay. So literally the next weekend, a friend of mine and her mother, we all we went up to Gettysburg. When they came and picked me up, we literally opened the back seat and said, "Okay, get in," telling the spirit to like, "Hey, get in." And dropped him off at Iverson's Pits, or at least I like doing the motions. It's like, hey, here, you don't have to stay here, but you can't follow me home. And because at that point he was disruptive. It was one of those like, if you can't tone it down, you got to go. Yeah, so that was the more recent one. I've had other situations where similar things have happened, but they weren't quite as disruptive or harmful. But like I said, I don't necessarily mind being followed home as long as they behave. So
Okay. What does yourself and your team do for protection?
Um, it's one of those things where I personally don't do anything, mainly because I'm trying not to establish this is as I said, I'm diving into more of the parapsychology side of
Mhm.
of investigating now. So I'm trying not to do that sort of thing anymore because it creates a bias for me, that I'm going to encounter something that could harm me and it could impact the way I investigate. So I go in these days not doing any sort of protection. I do have a couple of team members who are religious in various ways. I have a couple of pagans on my team. I
Mhm.
have, as far as I know, one Christian on the team, and they all have their own methods of protection. For me, I'm like, nah, I'm not going in with protection. I'm just gonna go in and see what happens. Um, and so far, I haven't really noticed anything different from when I was doing things to protect myself. And I don't know if it's because I'm going in now with just like a clean slate. Little girl, if activity happens, I
Okay.
don't assume it's the little girl. It's more of, okay, I could have made this event happen and let's go from there. So it's actually been kind of a game changer for me for how I investigated. I'm learning a lot of new things from that approach. But yeah, so in terms of protection, me personally, I don't do any. But my team members will do. Usually I tell people, I'm like, you're welcome to do whatever you need to do to make yourself feel safe. That is ultimately priority number one. Is I want my team members and anybody who investigates with us to feel safe.
Okay. Now, when you do a resident investigation after you've completed your investigation and you have your findings, your evidence for the resident, if the resident needs help, do you find help for them or?
We used to, but and again, it comes from this switch of um going in with using more parapsychology based methods as opposed to like ghost hunting spiritual methods, um
Mhm.
because at the end of the day you don't want to go in and cause more harm. You don't want to cause more harm or more issues. You don't want the residents to feel like fearful of their own home. A lot of times when we do residential cases, we're able to find an explanation for the event. Um, in terms of finding a resolution, we don't really do that anymore. We not happened to us personally, but we've heard of other teams getting sued if
Mhm.
if they conducted some sort of resolution and it didn't work. Granted, it's a frivolous lawsuit at the end of the day, but nobody wants to spend four figures to defend themselves in court,
Right.
or at least to sort through that. So we don't do resolutions anymore. We tell people, like, depending on what your spiritual alignment is, if it makes you feel better to bring in a pastor or a spiritual advisor, you're more than welcome to do that. But besides that, we don't, and plus, I'm like, none of us are necessarily qualified to do cleansings or
Mhm.
rituals. I mean, I am a practicing witch, so I do my own like rituals that I feel could help me. But for me, I am also very aware of the power of suggestion. So a lot of times when we're dealing with cases, it's either we're recommending that the client follows up with their doctor, or talking to some sort of life coach. Because a lot of times when a client does have paranormal happenings, or they believe is paranormal happenings, there's a lot more happening underneath the surface. It's more than just a haunted house. Usually the client is going through some sort of trauma, or they're coping through some sort of tragedy,
Mhm.
or there's mental illness at play, unfortunately. So it's like, and if it is very obviously a mental health issue, then we just back up. We back up and excuse ourselves, because we don't want the liability, but again, we also don't want to cause more harm.
Okay. Uh, what is your thoughts on orbs?
So you ask a very interesting question. So I used to be a professional photographer. I also
Mhm.
worked in the realm of film and TV, both in front of the camera and behind the camera. And
Mhm.
orbs that a lot of people will say or allege that are spirits are dust, dander, bugs, and it comes from knowing the mechanics of a camera. How the lens works,
Right.
focal points. Um, I have seen balls of light with my naked eye that I guess one could consider to be orbs, but a lot of times when I'm sent videos and photos, it's a lot of times it's like it's the IR lights, it's the little speck, it's the dust floating around that just happens to be out of focus, so it's circular. And um I know people have said like, "Oh, but it's not following the airflow." And I'm like, the entire room is an airflow. Like it's all
Yeah.
like 40 different airflows happening. So when it comes to stuff like that, I am very honest, because again, I don't want. And a lot of times when people send me this stuff, it's because they're afraid. Um,
Mhm.
and a lot, and most of the time, I want to say 90% of the time, people are receptive when I explain like, hey, and depending on the situation, I do approach it with sensitivity. And I'll just explain like, cameras 101 and how a camera works and IR lights
Right.
and why they're seeing what they're seeing. If they're dealing with a tragedy and they're trying to make sense of losing a loved one, like I said, I do approach that with more sensitivity. And
Mhm.
I do make sure to say something to the effect of, I am not saying that your grandmother is not coming to visit you. I'm just saying that this particular moment is not your grandmother. But she will show herself in other ways, that sort of thing.
Right.
Because I also believe that, because I've had experiences that are significant enough that has placed me in this field, and I'm still in this field for a reason. But I think sometimes we get so focused at watching dust and blinky lights and dander that we're missing out on like something incredible that's happening behind us. And all we need to do is turn around, if that makes sense.
That makes sense. I'm sorry. I always ask that question because I've never been big on orbs, but I have
Yeah.
had an experience at Fort Mifflin
Oh, nice.
in one of the casemates. Without the camera up to my eye, I saw this white ball of light that was the size of a hard ball, a Major League
Mm-hmm.
Baseball, come across the
Wow.
room, twirl a couple times like that, and then the two people that were with me, I told them, I asked them, I said, "Do you see what I'm seeing?" And they're like, "Oh my God!" And it just
Mm-hmm.
kept flying around in the room, and this solid white ball of light went right through the wall outside.
Oh, wow.
That
Nice.
is the weirdest.
Yeah.
Well, I don't want to call it an orb, but it was some kind of ball of light, and
Mm-hmm.
it wasn't a straight shot. Like I said, it was twirling and going in circles in the room before it went through the wall to the
Mm-hmm.
outside of Fort Mifflin on the grounds. So
Yeah. Oh,
here's
that's
one for
amazing.
you. Your favorite EVP.
Ooh, that's a
I know
good
that,
one.
yeah, there could be a lot of them, but your favorite one.
Oh, my favorite one. Okay. Let me think. So, I want to say it's not necessarily my favorite, but it's the most poignant one I've ever heard. It was
Mhm.
actually captured by a friend of mine who has since passed away as well. His name was John Mitzi, and he actually created a lot of different devices for picking up EVPs. He was an engineer. Really played with like different devices, microphones, different sensitivities, really amazing things. And he had caught this EVP. Again, he was the one that captured it. He had caught this EVP on this device. I forgot forgot the location, but it was actually on a tour. Like while the tour guide was talking about like the stories and everything, as they were switching and going to another room, you could hear this child's voice say, "Don't leave." Like you could hear this little kids say don't leave, and it was like almost, I would argue, was class A. It was very like, I didn't, because usually sometimes I'm like, I can't understand what they're saying, but this was very like, don't leave. um so it was very like, holy crap, listening to it. And well, the saddest part was listening to it after we were gone from the location. It was like,
Mhm.
okay, there was a child there who wanted to communicate, and you know we didn't
Mhm.
hear it. We didn't hear it in time. So that's actually why we started pursuing, like, at least when we do EVP sessions, we haven't done it as of late, but I usually want to try to have somebody listening on headphones. That's all they do, is just listening, but they're on a delay. It's usually like a 5 to 10 second delay, so that if something comes through, they can say, hey, they could raise their hand and be like, hey, I just heard this child's voice come through saying don't leave. Something to that extent, so we can capture it right away. Um, Another one was at St. Albans Sanitarium. I will not forget this one. Um, we were talking in like the main area near the big staircase, and we were talking about where did we want to go, like where did we want to go next in the building. And my medium on the team at the time, she was talking about how there was a male presence. This was his floor, and you can literally hear this voice say, just keep going, just keep going. It was almost like he was telling us to leave. um
Right.
that one is my other favorite. That's less sad than the child crying and saying don't leave.
Mine was also a child. It was a small boy. Uh, what I had did was I took a piece of chalk and I made a circle, and inside that circle I put a softball, a Hot Wheel car, and a handful of candy.
Oh,
Okay,
wow.
so we're pretty much in the dark. We had our headlamps on, and but I always kept mine not bright. I kept it dim, and if my batteries were dying, I let them die for that reason, so it wouldn't be too bright.
Hmm.
So we're doing an EVP session, and one of the members got up and was walking around, and I thought I was getting ready to walk into him, and I went towards the circle and I kicked the ball, and the ball
Hmm.
came out of the circle. So I heard one of my members saying, Dave just kicked the ball out of the circle. I'm going to put it back. So John goes and takes the ball and he goes to put it back in the circle, and he says, I'm going to put it next to the candy. Right after that, you hear a little boy say, where's my candy? I mean, clear as day.
Oh, wow.
It couldn't have been any better than what
Wow.
was captured. I mean, it was just clear. The little boy just said, where's my candy?
Oh my gosh. Oh, I
Just
love
like,
that.
yeah.
Love
So
that.
Tracy is in the chat room. She's a former member of mine. She's a good friend of mine, and she does a show uh, once a week. And I was telling her about you, and she said she was gonna send you an email and see if she could. Uh,
I think she did, and I need to reply to it. Yes, she did. I will reply right now.
So yeah, she does. She has 2 shows a week, and
Hmm.
let me just fix something here. Okay. All right. So this next question I have for you, and then I'll go to Tracy and see if she has one for you. Um, they say that when communicating with a spirit or a lost loved one, that is actually an evil spirit. What's your
Mm.
theory? What's your theory on that?
Say the question one more time. Just make sure I
Okay.
understand it.
They say when communicating with a spirit, doing EVP work uh, with a lost loved one, or
Hmm.
at an investigation, many people say that you're not actually talking to who you think you're talking to. You're talking to an evil spirit. What's your theory on that?
Mm. I would say, BS. Well, okay, that's my knee jerk reaction. Typically though, I would say something I would start asking questions. I would
Mhm.
say, why do you think it's evil? And a lot of times I will help
Right.
uncover beliefs, biases. But it's like, I'll usually pull out the D word. What data do you have to support this claim? And a
Mhm.
lot of
Right.
times it's because of religious beliefs, or it's
Mhm.
because, oh well, I was ghost hunting and I got scratched. Okay, what were you doing when you got scratched? It's like, what happened before you got scratched? What led up to the scratch? And a
Right.
lot of times it's, you find out that they were provoking, or somebody in their party was provoking, or they weren't being respectful of the space. Um, I'm a bit dubious of scratches too, just because I've seen people do some weird things to themselves that they didn't even realize they were doing. Um, so usually I just ask, like, well, why do you feel that way? Personally, for me, I think a lot of people associate fear with evil. So
Mhm.
if something makes you feel nervous or fearful, then it's automatically evil. And this happens
Right.
a lot in ghost hunting, especially with newer investigators. And it's like, oh, I'm scared. It must be out to get me or trying to hurt me. No, it's because you're feeling a negative feeling. It doesn't necessarily mean that what you're encountering is negative in itself.
Mhm.
So I usually will try to talk through that with somebody, because I'll say, well, what makes you believe that's evil? Is it because of your personal feelings, or is it because the entity said I'm evil, rar? Um, so yeah, I usually just try to dive deep with questions as much as possible.
Yeah, EVPs was my specialty. That's what I seem to lean, more to. Uh, I let my team do the video work and all the other technical stuff. I was always an audio person. I loved doing EVP work, and I even liked it when when the spirits would throw that humor in there. You would ask a question. It's like I was doing an EVP session with a friend of mine, and he noticed that I made a noise, so he tagged it, and he said, "Oh, that was Dave that made that noise."
Oh wow.
And the EVP that came back of the spirit said, "Who's Dave?"
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
yeah. Um, Tracy, do you have a question for Alex? Give her a second. See if she
Yeah.
has one. Okay, that was your second, Tracy. Okay, so in the paranormal with your team, what do you consider your specialty? What is it that you enjoy doing the most? Is it the history,
Hmm.
the EVP work?
That's a great question. For me, I think it's more of doing the analytics at the end, like kind of doing the figuring out the conclusion of
Mhm.
the case. So taking all of the different pieces, putting them together and see what they tell us. So taking in like the historical research, the excuse me, the
Mhm.
reports of paranormal activity, the interviews from the clients, what we personally experienced. Um, Getting input from the other investigators, and then putting it all together to try to figure out exactly what could be happening. Um, that's my favorite part. It's just putting all the ingredients together to bake the cake.
There you go. All right, Tracy, she does have a question. Let me throw that up there. She says, "What has been your scariest adventure?"
Hmm. Scariest adventure.
Hmm.
That's a good question. I mean, I haven't had a lot of scary adventures in the last few years. And again, that's just coming from uh changing my perspective on on haunted locations and spirits in general. But I mean, I had a scary moment a year or two ago, not necessarily associated with ghosts, but we were doing an investigation in the basement of this museum, and we heard this like scratching sound, this like almost like Velcro being ripped, and then something fell. And
Mhm.
it startled me and my teammates, and literally it was one of those like we all jumped and gasped, and it was almost like my other team member practically like jumped into my arms. It startled us that much, so it was pretty comical. But yeah, scariest. Hmm. That's a tough one for me because I've been startled, but usually that's been due to something not paranormal. Um,
Mhm.
I mean, there's some locations I've been to that have been terrifying because I could see the asbestos on the ceiling. Um,
Oh yeah.
but yeah, no, I haven't necessarily had a scary adventure, so to speak. I mean, I guess the spirit attachment from my accident, that was terrifying. I don't
Mhm.
know if I would call that an adventure though, because that's more trauma. Um, so yeah, no, that's a good question. I would have to think about that a little bit more.
Okay. Okay. Let me throw this next one up there from Tracy. I believe I hit the right one. Let's see. I tuned in late. Sorry. Do you work with crystals, recorders, etc.?
So on paranormal investigations, I don't work with any sort of spiritual tools. I do have recorders, so we usually try to have audio recorders, cameras, any sort of recording equipment that can help us figure out, what was going on and help log any experiences or any phenomena that we encounter. Um, in terms of spiritual tools, no, I don't use anything like that. I never really have either. Yeah, never really have actually. So
Okay. Uh, okay. Now she's coming up with all kind of questions. Here's another one for you from Tracy. Have you ever been marked?
I would have to ask a follow up. What do you mean by have I ever been marked? Because I've heard variations of the term, but I just want to make sure
Mhm.
that I'm on the same page.
Okay. Let's see what her
Yeah.
Tracy's reply is. Well,
Mm.
okay, she hasn't done it yet. I'll go ahead and ask you this question. Everybody has a bucket list. What place would be at the top of your list that you hope someday to investigate?
Ooh. I would love to go into the Paris catacombs. Um, I've heard of weirdness happening down there. I would of course go in with full respect for the dead that are interred there. I would probably go in more from like an observational standpoint, have the recorder, listen to the stories and see if there's anything there that's responsive.
Mhm.
Another one for me, I think, would be I would love to go to Waverly Hills. Just that was my cat again. I would go to Waverly Hills. Because I've never been there. It's always been a bucket list item. I also heard it's huge. I would love to go there. Let's see. I would love to investigate the White House.
The White House.
Yep.
Okay.
And I'm only 10 minutes, not even 10 minutes away from it. I don't know.
Right.
Make friends with whoever ends up in office in the next election, and hopefully I can maybe get in. But so,
Right. One of my colleagues that, what was his name? Jeff, is it Ballinger?
oh, Jeff Ballinger. Yeah.
Yeah, I think he wrote a book about the White House. I don't know if he actually uh, got to go in there. I'm not sure, but okay, Tracy. Here we go. If I can get this to work, there we go. Bruises or scratches? That's what she means by being marked.
Oh. In that case, no. I've been pretty fortunate. I have not encountered any bruises or scratches or been physically marked in any sort of way. So,
Okay. So during any investigations? Have you ever had a or seen a full body apparition or a partial?
Um, yes, I've seen a partial bodied apparition on the battleship North
I'm sorry, you broke up.
Carolina in Washington. Um,
There we go.
I was hanging out in enlisted quarters, actually in the bathroom, listed, kind of taking in me. Oop. Okay, I think I'm back.
Yeah,
Maybe.
you were freezing up there for
Yeah,
15
sometimes my
seconds.
internet here is not super reliable, which is frustrating. Yeah, so I was on the battleship North Carolina in the enlisted bathroom, and I was just sitting in there taking in the environment. And then I heard footsteps, and so I looked over at the open doorway, and I just saw a pair of legs walk by the doorway. Just a pair of legs. That's it.
Mm.
So that was neat. Now, the full-bodied apparition, I mean, I could say that the man in the leather jacket, the spirit attachment, was my
Right.
full-bodied apparition.
Okay.
I mean, he looked just as apparent and real as, you're sitting here today in front of me. So very noticeable. So, yeah.
Okay. All right. Let me just see if I can get this. Do you use StreamYard?
I do, yes.
Do you have technical issues every now and then?
Yep.
Sometimes StreamYard can be a real pain in the butt. It can you try to get something to work and it just don't want to work, and then
Yep.
then
Especially once you hit the live button, it seems it all goes downhill once you're live.
yeah, one of the things I'm trying to figure out now is if I play a video, as long as I'm in the room,
Mm-hmm.
it freezes on my end but plays fine on the other end.
Oh no! Oh, I hate
Now,
that.
if I take myself out, it'll spit and sputter, but it'll still play. So I just take myself out and wait for it to, when it ends, then it comes back to to me, and I throw myself back in there. But
Oh wow.
I can't figure that one out. So how about have you ever investigated any asylums?
I mean, St. Albans was, I guess, an asylum at some point. I have visited Trans Allegheny. I haven't investigated it yet, but I did the paranormal tour.
Mm-hmm.
I have feelings about investigating asylums, mixed feelings about it.
Okay.
Mainly because I want to make sure if we ever go in there, it's like we're going in there with the utmost respect. Because also, especially with situations like Trans Allegheny, a lot of the patients at Trans Allegheny actually did not deal with mental health issues, but instead they were marginalized at the time, or they were uncooperative housewives, so to speak, and they were sent to Trans Allegheny to be lobotomized. So really trying to keep in mind, we try to stay super respectful if we ever do go into a space like that. I have mixed feelings about it because I've seen paranormal investigators go into asylums and treat it like a zoo. And when you're dealing with people who have mental health, who struggled with mental health, it's not very sensitive, especially when they go in and start provoking or making really insensitive comments for the sake of getting a response. So we have been talking about visiting Trans Allegheny for a full investigation. One, it's really expensive, so we haven't quite hit the ground running quite yet. But anytime, like, we go to a hospital or someplace where there was a lot of trauma that happened, a lot of emotional turmoil, we really try to make sure we're approaching it with as much respect and reverence as possible. Um, I mean, I'm sure there's people there who would love to tell their story, and I would love to be there to hear that story. But I also want to make sure that we're not going in there and, you know, being jerks. So, um,
Right.
and going in with sensitivity and not going in there with the anticipation to be scared, but more so of hearing stories and hearing about their own personal experiences. And however they would like to communicate that with us.
Okay. All right, Alex. What I'm going to do is I'm gonna go to a commercial. I have a upcoming event where I'm going to be doing karaoke. It's
Oh,
the
nice.
Bigfoot Camping Adventure coming up in September. So I want to get that on there. We're going to take a quick break, and then when we come back, we're going to talk more with Alex. Wow, just like I said, I took myself out and it worked fine. If I leave myself in there, it freezes up on my end. It just drives me crazy. It just started doing that recently. I don't can't figure out why.
Mhm.
So let me bring something up here. Uh, let's see. Whoops, I took it out. Okay, so let's go down to ah, get back up here. Okay, let's start with we're gonna talk a little bit about your books.
Mhm.
Okay. I'm interested in in getting them uh, for my wife. She's a big reader, and I read from time to time, but I can't read as fast as she can. So let's start with this one.
Yeah.
Okay, one bed over.
Yep.
Okay, and that book, from what I understand, is related to your car accident, correct?
Yep, that is the story of my car accident and the spirit attachment and that whole situation that followed. So, it's got about
Okay.
8 months worth of experiences with my spirit attachment.
Now, do we go through Amazon or can we get them directly from you?
Yeah, so you can get them from me at my Etsy shop. It is
Mhm.
thespookystuff.etsy.com, and I will sign the book for you as well. There
Okay.
is an additional, I mean, there is shipping involved, so it is a little
Okay.
more expensive than Amazon. But if you would like a signed copy, you can go to my Etsy shop, and
Okay.
yeah, happy to do that for you.
All right. Let's put this one up there.
Ah, yes, that's my latest release, Women of the Paranormal, Volume 1. This book documents 38 women in paranormal history who made a significant contribution to the field. Some women include Rosemary Ellen Guiley, Catherine Crowe, who history strongly suggests that she is the first paranormal investigator to actually use the same methods that we utilize today. Um, Really incredible woman. But yeah, so there's other mediums, parapsychologists, scientists, occultists included in that book.
Okay. I knew I forgot there was a question I wanted to ask you before I go to the next one. The gentleman that was in your episode, Haunted Hospitals,
Hmm.
I can't remember his first name, but his last name was
Oh,
Estep.
Richard Estep.
Richard.
Yep.
Okay. Is he somehow related to Becky and her mom?
As far as I know, no. I think they're I think it's just a common last name.
Okay.
Because I ran into it in one of the books, in one of the women in Women of the Paranormal. There's a Sarah Wilson Estep who made a huge contribution for EVPs, and I asked Richard, I was like, "Hey, do you happen to be related to Sarah Wilson Estep?" And he said no. So, yeah, no relation as far as I know.
Okay. Okay. All right. Let's put this one up.
Ah, yes, The Haunting of the 10th Avenue Theater. So this is a book that I wrote about my investigations at this haunted theater in downtown San Diego. Really, really interesting experiences I had there. That book has since been out of print. I am working on putting out a second edition, hopefully next year. But yeah, if you can I think you could get a hold of it pretty cheap though right now on Amazon, like used books.
Okay. All right. And here's number 4.
Ah, yeah, the Brave Mortal's Guide to Ghost Hunting. So this is a book that, because I always get a lot of questions of like, hey, I'm interested in investigating. How do I get started? What do I do? And yeah, so I wrote the book as an answer to that. It's basically all the advice that I usually give to people when they ask me how to ghost hunt. I also have my lessons learned, the stupid things that I did, so that other people don't replicate it.
Okay, so these books can be ordered from your Etsy shop and Amazon as well, correct?
Yep. Yep, all the books except The Haunting of the 10th Avenue Theater, since that one's out of print. But hopefully I'll have more out soon.
Okay, we're going to go back to the let's see the chat room. Let's see what we have here. Okay, all right, great. There's the link. Okay, all right. So let me go back to here. I want to put this. Tracy, I'm gonna put this up for you. You might want to write this down if I can find it. Okay, here we go.
Yep.
thespookystuff.com.
Okay.
And then I'm gonna put up this one as well. Okay. So yeah, Tracy has a fantastic show that she does twice a week. So
nice.
when you get a chance, get back to her and check it out. We're a little over the first hour. We're going to go until 8:30. Mm-hmm. So right now, I'm going to give you a chance to put up any links, or how can people get a hold of you if they want to have you on their podcast, or if they need to get in touch with you about something?
Yeah, so they can go to my website, thespookystuff.com. I have a contact form on there, so if you want to get in touch with me, you could definitely fill out the form there. You can also find me on Facebook too. I'm under Alex MATSUO on Facebook. I also have a Facebook page called The Spooky Stuff with Alex MATSUO. You can also go through my team. It's Association of Paranormal Study.com. I'll put the link in the chat. And you can contact my team through there. We do have an event happening in Gettysburg on Saturday, August 17th. So tickets are now on sale for the conference. People are more than welcome to buy tickets and come hang out. We got programming happening in 3 different buildings. The folks at Ghost City Tours and Ghostly Images of Gettysburg have donated their spaces for programming, and then we're also having presentations done at the Gettysburg Hotel. So we have a lot of good stuff happening on Saturday, August 17th. It's going to be a busy day, but it'll be a good day.
Yeah, if you have something that you want me to promote, send that to me, and
Okay.
I'll be sure to get it out there for you.
Sweet.
All right,
Thank
let me
you.
take a look here. Whoops. Okay, let's see. I just want to make sure I'm not, let me go back to here. Make sure I didn't leave anything. Okay. Nope. So that was you said you said you have more like 7 books, not 4.
Yeah, so I should go to my Amazon page and count. So, yeah, so my first book that I ever put out is called The Haunted Actor. I do have another book coming out.
I did see that one.
Yeah, I do have another book coming out in September. It's called Haunted Northern Virginia, and it's going to be covering bunch of haunted spots in Northern Virginia, so just across the river from the DC metro area. Yeah, so hopefully it will be good stuff. Let's see. Okay, so
Wasn't there something titled Hampton?
The Hamptonville Hauntings, yes.
Okay.
So that book is about this little haunted hospital down in North Carolina, in Hamptonville, North Carolina. It's one of my favorite locations. It's called the Trivett Clinic or Trivett Clinic, and it was built in 1932. And it's rumored to be haunted by over 70 ghosts. And I will say it's probably one of the most unique locations that I've ever been to. There's definitely a lot going on there, and I'm not quite sure exactly what it is, but you can definitely feel there's a weird energy there. And it seems like, the stories and the lore behind the Trivett Clinic are really fascinating. The history is really neat as well. I mean, it was a clinic for a small town, and then it evolved, but it became a supper club. It became a detox clinic. It was a nursing home for 2 iterations, and then it became a private residence. So it's gone through quite a few different identities, and like I said, a delightful location for sure.
Now, is that where you captured the tag EVP?
Yes. That is where I captured the tag EVP. So
tell us about that.
Yeah, so that happened during the first time I had ever been to the Trivett Clinic. So I was actually vetting a new team member too. So I was having her take more of the lead because she was an experienced investigator. So I really wanted to see what she could do. And one of the spirits that's allegedly haunting the basement is a little girl by the name of Majesty. So basically what this person was trying to do was try to get Majesty to engage with the group and talk to the group. And so this investigator came up with the idea of, well, why don't we try playing tag? Why don't we try having them play tag with Majesty? And so this investigator went over the rules and the directions for tag, and I was encouraging this little girl to touch one of us to let us know who's it. And then you can hear this little voice go, tag. So it was pretty cool. It's pretty cool. So yeah.
Wow. Here we go with another pop-up. Get off of there. Okay. There we go. I hate when that happens.
Oh yeah, pain.
Yeah, I'm looking for something and something else pops up. So.
Oh, don't you hate that? It's such a pain.
Okay, does anybody have any more questions for Alex? I'm sure you do. Tracy, are you still with us? Okay.
Have I ever been touched by a spirit? Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah. Yes. Well, I believe I have. I believe I've been touched by something that I would say is a spirit. It was actually at the 10th Avenue Theater of all places too.
Hmm.
I was actually doing a tour of the 10th Avenue Theater, and I was talking about this entity that popped up on this. So we had a hunting camera set up in one of the rooms, and we had caught this really interesting spirit on there, or what we thought was a spirit, but I would say today it's an anomaly. It was like this really strange anomaly. It set off the motion sensor. It was very apparent. It was like, whoa, what is that? So I was describing to the group like where the camera was placed and where this entity or where this anomaly would have been positioned, and it felt like a hand touched my leg, and it startled me. I was like, oh my gosh, I'm like, something just touched me. um but yeah, that one was very like, oh, it startled me. It was fun, but it startled me for sure. But yeah, so it was that one was a little it startled me a little bit, just a little bit. It startled me.
I'll tell you, I remember one time I was, I'm sorry, I was at a state hospital. It's called Fort Howard State Hospital in Baltimore, Maryland. And I
Hmm.
was in the, it's been closed down for many, many years. And I happened to be in the morgue with one of my colleagues. And he's, we're doing EVP work. And he's like, can you hit one of us? Can you slap? I'm like, hey, stop.
Hmm.
And then when, see, I don't like to do long EVPs. So I like to do short ones, somewhere
Hmm.
around 4 or 5 minutes. So that way, when I go back and take a break, I can review it, right there and then. I ain't got to listen to all this. I do listen to it again and again, but um, the spirit, when he said, can you hit one of us? Can you slap one of us? The spirit said, ha ha, you're funny. I'm
Oh,
like,
wow.
oh, I'm glad the
Nice.
spirit just said that and that, didn't slap or hit one of us. But wow,
Hmm.
I just don't, I being and being in a morgue, I just don't like, I'm not down with the ones that climb inside where the bodies have been and, to do EVP work. I'm like, oh, how can you do that?
Hmm.
Yeah. I can
Nice.
stand there, I can sit on a chair, and I can ask questions, but I'm not climbing inside of one of them freezers.
Yep.
it's,
I
it's just
wouldn't. I
it's
wouldn't.
just not me. Yep, I'm the big guy, the sissy. So, oh well. All right, let me take a look here. One more time at the chat room. Okay, there's nothing there. So we're coming at close to 8:30. So go ahead and give you your information one more time, and I'll throw this up there as well.
Yeah. So y'all can find me on my website, thespookystuff.com. You can also find me on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. My handle for all of those areas is the spooky stuff. So you can get in touch with me there. I don't check my message requests very often, just because I get so many. I try to check it once a month, but sometimes it's a little longer. So if you really want to get in touch with me, do Facebook, but also maybe hit me up on Twitter or Instagram. Because I tend to check those areas more. But yeah, I mean, I'm around. I try to respond to everybody if I can. But yeah, that's, find me on my website or find me on social media. I'm around.
There you go. All right, everyone. I want to thank you for tuning in tonight to listen to myself and Alex. And again, thanks for joining in. And Alex, thanks for being my guest tonight. Thank you very much. And please send me that information I asked you for about the upcoming event, and I'll promote that for you.
Nice.
So thank you again, and you have a good night.
Thank you.